Hey everybody, welcome to Do You Believe on Paranormal Zone TV. I want to thank you all so much for joining me tonight. And for those who may be new to the show, if you would please subscribe, I'd appreciate it. And please don't forget to give the show a like because you're going to love tonight's show. It is going to be awesome. I can't wait for this topic. Sean Sirois has been a guest before on my show, and I am going to replay that show. It was absolutely fabulous, but I don't have it on my channel. It's on one of my other channels, but I'm going to bring it back to my channel. I'm going to replay that show. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Shane. Shane Sirois is a paranormal researcher. Let me show you his picture. His website is trueghost.com. Shane Sirois has been helping families and individuals with haunts and disruption most of his life. He uses his intelligent scientific side, his advanced understanding, and his gifts to diagnose and treat any disturbance in any home. Shane's abilities are not just limited to healing homes, he heals people and lives as well. Shane also appears on the radio show Beyond the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. Is that correct, Shane?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do all the open line shows with them. It's every 4 or 5 weeks or so. We do open lines when he doesn't have a guest, and we go and we answer listeners' questions and stuff like that, and address certain topics. It's a good time.
It's one of the best paranormal shows out there. One of the best. And I'm going to show them this picture I have of you with your minivan with your little advertisement on it. That is so cute. I love that. You know which one I'm talking about with your white car?
Oh, the white one?
Yeah.
I got the white one. I got a gray one now, too.
Yeah, that's cute. I just wanted to show everybody that. Okay, so everybody, with that, let's welcome Shane to the show. Welcome Shane to the show. Welcome. Oh my God. You know, I am so excited to have you on the show tonight because of this topic. The similarities between the 411 strange disappearances and these entities, these strange invisible entities. So you want to start the show off?
Yeah. So, well, just in case, some people aren't familiar with me, but I've been doing paranormal research for over 30 years. I've helped thousands of people with what we call parasitic life forms or parasitic entities, and I've been, I have a 100% success rate getting rid of those because I understand the mechanics and kind of how they operate and everything, and I'm seeing kind of certain topics of the missing 401, I'm seeing kind of like similar characteristics that I do in the field, and I don't just do paranormal research. I've been involved in ufology, and it's something my success seems to be. People are latching on to my success with the parasitic entities or the nasty, what people call haunts, but we're realizing that they're actual life forms. They're not like an angry ghost of a dead person. That they're actually life forms that have been attached to people and affecting them in negative ways, and feeding off of emotional frequencies and emotional energies and stuff like that. And but kind of how they come in and out, I see a lot of connection with with these 411 cases, and I had to take notice. And I hadn't even heard of this until probably like a year ago. I knew it was, I knew there was something going on with it, but I never researched it too much at all until I was at a job. I also own a remodeling business, and I was at a job, and I was just working. I'm listening to some stories about rescue stories of search and rescue people, strange search and rescue stories, and and all these are just being told. People are posting stuff on Reddit and stuff, and there's a narrator who's just reading these, for his channel or whatever, and they were interesting, but you don't know if they're real or not or whatever. But then I bumped into a link with with David Paulides, missing 411, and these are all all factual cases. These are documented cases, and so I found that most intriguing. And just to listen to the stories, and we'll get into further my opinions on certain matters, because one of my strengths in the way I've been able to kind of be successful in my work is I went into it with an open mind, and I went into it with a process to identify trends and look for things that people were missing, because people have been trying to help people with, like, say, negative, we'll call it haunts, but I'm telling you, they're actual life forms. They're beings amongst us that are feeding off of emotional energies, and fear is what they love the most. So
are you talking about also demonic, what everybody refers to as demonic entities?
Right, exactly. People call them demonic. We go way back, and they call them archons. They even appear in the Quran. I mean, it's a very, very old, religious document or whatever. There's a whole chapter dedicated to these archons, or what people call that feed off of this negative energy, and not really. You know what? I come to believe, we say negative energy, but I've come to notice that their ultimate goal is to get you to the fear frequency, to the fear, to the point of fear. That's when they are their strongest. They're getting the most from you from that. And the reason why it just kind of a light bulb went off when I'm listening to these stories, because in my opinion, it's a little bit different. But I have several ideas on what might be going on, and this is just throwing this out there because these people aren't really, a lot of these people that are found dead aren't eaten by animals. So if they were attacked by a mountain lion,
so now you're relating this now to the 411 missing cases.
Yes.
Now, but Shane, most of these are out in the forest.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And so what I'm trying to say, this is what kind of got me kind of interested, because I saw something similar, but also these people that are going missing. What was interesting to me was they're often found with just a couple scratches or no marks at all, and they're dead. They've been missing for months, but yet they find they've only been dead. By the time they find them, the coroner says they've only been dead a couple weeks. Well, let me tell you something. It doesn't take long for you to be dead out in the wilderness, to be ravaged by vultures and other crows and anything that's going to feed off of carcasses, because like these vultures, they can smell decomposing bodies from 20 miles or something, and they're going to be right on it. And so these bodies are unscathed usually when they're found. And so I found that most interesting, and it kind of tells me that wherever they go missing too, they're not on ground level. I mean, they're being taken somewhere and then returning. What's interesting too is that they're placed in obvious areas where people have been going back and forth, trailheads where people enter into the woods, hundreds of people throughout the week or whatever, in and out, different shifts, and they pass this trail all the time, and they go looking for the person, nothing, and then all of a sudden one day there's a tree laid over across that same trailhead, and the body's laying on top of a tree trunk. So something wants these things found. So this is it's kind of interesting, because it's got to be something intelligent and something with an agenda, because I think that this is a point where if they don't have to return the body, they've had it for a while, but they return it, and I think the reason why it's being returned is so the search will end and people will go away, and they whatever this is can go about whatever it's doing. But
can I ask a question? Can I ask you a question? Now I've done some shows on these missing people, and
right.
several of the cases were like, one of them was the 4-year-old little boy who went missing, and they found him up way up high up in the rocks. Now the thing is also, and they found his shoe. They found his shoes. They found his clothing, but they didn't find his body. And then another case, this doctor, he was hiking with his friends, and then he, all of a sudden, I guess they were continuing on, and he went missing. He wasn't with them, the group, anymore, and they found him down in a ravine. And he had he was very well known for his hiking abilities and his life-saving abilities. You know, that should not have happened, because, and his radio was in working, his cell phone was in working order. So are those the kind of cases? Okay, so another thing also, Shane, is that they say these missing people that go missing in these forests wear bright colored clothes. That's one of the MOs. So, okay, so go ahead and continue on.
Yeah. So, but not all of them. So, but a majority of it, and even in other countries too, there's a lot of belief that if you go out into the forest, you have to wear black or white or gray, you know, and it's kind of funny because a lot of religions too, like they tend to wear dark black or white clothing too. So it's kind of in that tradition as well. But I mean, I think of, there's so many cases that we can refer to, and it is so bizarre. But I think if we look at all the evidence, that it can only be one of three things, and so hopefully we'll talk more about that tonight. But you know, there was that football player. He was like 6'1" or 6'2", 240 pounds of solid muscle, avid outdoorsman. He goes out into the woods, or to fish or whatever. His friend said, you know, he's a man's man. He's not afraid of anything. Calls his wife freaking out, saying, "I'm being followed. Something's following me." Well, they found him, you know, weeks later or whatever, dead. And you know, it's bizarre because none of these people, a lot of these people that are found dead, don't have any like bite marks, or you know, they might have scratches that could be caused by branches, but nothing significant. And what's funny is, you know, if they were missing for months, and then they said the cause of death was drowning, but when they find them in the water, if they were in the water for months, it only takes like a week or two before your hair to start falling out and your fingernails will fall off when you're in water for a long period of time. So these people, you know, they're being found almost right after they died, and they're being placed back out so they'll be found. And I truly believe whatever's doing this wants them to be found, so people go away, the search parties go away. So
but there are cases, Shane, where they haven't found the bodies. And then there was also this case where this little child was walking with his parents, and all of a sudden they turned around and he's gone. He disappeared.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, it's so easy, like, so some of we could have multiple things going on here. So I'm looking at the ones that are just really bizarre. The ones where people never, you know, appear again, I think are less confusing to me. I mean, or you could, because say like a little 2-year-old, a bald eagle could pick up a 2-year-old and carry that away, and then, you know, they might find it down. They say, you know, there's so many ones that have died from a fall, and so the eagle could have got tired, dropped it, you know. So those ones, I mean, in the areas where these are happening, this happens. So you do have to keep them in that category of being weird. But you know, it's the ones that are found dead that don't have a lot of marks on them. And are you familiar with the one where they found the kid, and it was like he was melted like candle wax onto a chain link fence?
No, where was that?
Yes.
In one of the national forests?
Yes.
Oh my!
It's one of the missing 401 files, and it was I forget how old the kid was. I'm thinking like 8 years old or something like that. But it was a young boy, and they found, he was missing for a while, and they found him. There was a chain link fence, and they found him like he had been melted like candle wax, embedded into the chain link fence, and just smeared into it.
No,
that doesn't make sense.
I didn't.
And so and then water, like David Paulides says, he doesn't know why, but he really believes water has something to do with all this. And I've been saying that. I have drawings of my paranormal work, and with the XF data that will show you that'll prove that I've been saying that water has so much to do with a lot of these paranormal events and aid the process of these crossovers, these things that are coming through. And I've been saying that since the 90s, and because the data, the evidence, the work that I'm doing, I document everything. I look for things outside of the norm. Everyone's just going, oh, okay, what happens in the house, this or that. I started looking at the surroundings, the environment, the emotional state of the people in the home, the emotional state of the person being afflicted, and stuff like that, and started connecting dots and everything. And I started realizing that the most legitimately active homes had rivers or streams next to them. And if you look at the cluster map that David Paulides has put together, these areas are all surrounded by rivers and streams. And so isn't all the flap areas we call paranormal flap areas that we work with. Me, Paulino, Benino, Mark D'Antonio's involved. We got Alexander Petikoff now, Chuck Credo. So we got this team, and we're working in Pennsylvania. We're in Connecticut. Where there's areas in New Hampshire that I've been working on that we call paranormal flap areas. They're areas that are just supercharged. Like, you've got a lot of UFO sightings regularly. You have haunted homes. You have people seeing cryptid type animals and stuff like that. Every single one of those areas are surrounded by multiple rivers and streams, and so aren't all the missing person cases. And not only that, these flap areas that we've been working in all have, not a coincidence, all have military bases in the vicinity, like within the flap area. And two of them, one for sure, 100% for sure, one we're almost 100% sure, being a deep underground military base. The one I'm sure of is in Western Connecticut, and the land was purchased by a aerospace defense contractor, because that's how they're going to do it. They're not going to buy this property under their own name. And what it is, it's a dairy farm with no dairy farming going. There's no farming at all. It's just this dairy barn with 2 silos, and they tore down the barn. They excavated underneath the ground. Next thing you know, there's transformers and vent stacks sticking up out of the prairie, and they erected this huge radio tower across the street, and all this other stuff. And then they built they built another dairy barn to look like the other one. And there's nothing going on there except for black vehicles that are usually there. Some people have been told to leave by men in military fatigues and machine guns. The land, which was nothing but a dairy barn and a little bungalow house that was smaller than a regular apartment. I mean, it was tiny, like a shed. Sold for I forget now, but it was over $7 million, and it made no sense because there wasn't a lot of acreage to it. So it just told me whoever owned it didn't want to sell it, but whoever bought it wanted to really buy it, and they put the price tag up, to make sure they got this land. And this is in a paranormal flap area. This is where weird things are happening. A lot of hauntings, a lot of UFOs. One of the houses that we investigated not only had like what people would call ghostly activity, also had like alien creatures in their house. Like they look just like aliens, We got a photo. We got a photo of what looks kind of like a gray alien, and I sent it to you. It looks kind of like a gray alien standing in a doorway, and then there's like a weird effect in front of it.
Okay, wait a minute. You sent me 3 pictures, but
Oh, I sent more than that. Oh, you didn't get them all.
When did you send me the other pictures?
You got the first ones first, and then I got your message saying you got them, and then I sent more after that.
Oh no! All right, well let me
okay.
put you. Well, hold on. Let me see. Go ahead. I'm gonna put you on full screen, and I'll see if I can find them.
Okay.
All right, hold on.
So yeah, just a very weird area. You know, so this tells me not only in these flap areas are there all kinds of weird things going on. There's things coming through. Whatever the rivers and the streams kind of aid this process. Whatever's going on. So we think that the military is actually trying to duplicate it or tap into it, or they might even have a part in it. We don't know for sure, but the military is definitely present for a reason. So it's not a shock to find that in all these missing person clusters, there's military bases nearby, and in a lot of them, not all of them, but in the most active areas there are. In the Pennsylvania case that I'm involved with, in the Connecticut case I'm involved with, both very strong flap areas, both have confirmed and well-known military bases above ground, but also ones up below ground that one we confirmed and one we strongly believe in Pennsylvania. The Connecticut one is for sure.
Wow.
So the military knows what's going on for sure. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind, and the fact that with that said, you gotta think about this. In these clusters of people going missing with these military bases nearby, if you were going to conduct, and I'm not saying I'm not conspiracy theorist, I'm just going out there. So we're just having a discussion of possibilities. I'm not locked down to one yet, but there's three that I'm leaning towards, and it's got to be one of the three I'm thinking. But if we do have like a black military program where we're doing weird things that a lot of people suggest, and a lot of whistleblowers have come out and said, some people seem really credible. Wouldn't it be great to do it at a national force, because it's owned by the government, and the only one that can really investigate it is the government. So they've had an FBI agent overlook some of these missing cases in these national forests. One guy was most prominent. He ended up committing suicide, they said, just weeks before he retired. Now, did he commit suicide, or was he killed? Because once he retired, was he going to talk about it? Was he murdered? Like I said, I'm not a conspiracy. There's just things just don't add up. Like something is weird. Something is very, very strange. So on the conversation of if it is an experiment, whether it be by extraterrestrial or military or both, and the fact that they're found in water almost always could indicate a few things. Not necessarily, but because it could be something supernatural too, and I'll talk more about that. But on a more rational kind of like, if it was one of those things, extraterrestrial, military, found in water, it would be a good reason would be because it could remove evidence. It could wash off evidence. It could wash off DNA. It could wash off radiation. So that could be a big part of that. The other thing with the water is a lot of this activity comes and goes near water bodies. For instance, this is a different. This is not in a national forest, but I was called to a home one time where there was. It said, somebody's in the house. There's something going on in the house. And my first reaction was call the cops. But these people didn't feel like it was something of that nature because they had been messing around with the Ouija board, so they thought it was something else. So I got there, and they were sitting across the street. I go in the house. I walk into the entry foyerway, and then I go into what was a dining room, and then walk by the dining room table, go into the kitchen. The back door was open, so I go to the back door. I look out the back door. There's footprints coming into the house in a fresh snow. It was like like an inch of snow, not even of fresh snow. There was a big parking lot in the back. There was a dead end street in the back with no tire tracks because nobody had been home from work yet that day. It was a work day, a weekday. No tire tracks in the parking saw the footprint, so I turn around and I go through the living room, back into the entryway, the foyer, into the dining room. Now, the dining room that I was just in, not even a minute ago, all the dining room chairs were stacked up on top in a pyramid on top of the table. I go into the kitchen, immediately, and there was bar stools that were all stacked up on top of each other in the middle of the kitchen. I go to the back door. There's footprints now leading out of the back door. I follow the footprints. The footprints started and stopped at the same spot. No tire tracks, nowhere for these footprints to have gone, or whatever this was, to have gone. And the closest thing to the footprints was a bend in the river, but there was no place for. But I'm telling you true. I saw them coming in, and then when there were none going out until I tracked this thing around the house, and then went back out, and I saw them going out, and they started and stopped at the same spot, and there was a river, but it didn't jump in the river. It was too far away. It was like probably like, I don't know, 10 yards or so, 10 to 20 yards where they stopped from that river. And a lot of these cases, and like I said, I've helped thousands of people over the years with these what we call parasitic life forms. And at first, I thought, oh yeah, they're angry, they're ghosts or whatever, but I never named them like ghosts or anything like that. I always called them parasitic entities because that's what their personalities seem to be. And but I always thought that they were, something of that nature, popular belief, but different than what most people thought. But now I just understand them as actual life forms because I've been bumped by them. They have bone structure. Paulino had a tussle with one, had bone structure. My wife was bumped by one, and so you can feel these things like it's a real living thing. And if they can take I saw a king size bed get picked up in the middle of a room and slam a guy up against a wall and sandwich him against a wall. So these are real life forms, and they're nasty. And so I think they're all around. And so.
But where do they come from?
They have to be multiversal. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that can't wrap their heads around that because they could be terrestrial. I mean, they could be here, but it's funny that they don't interact and we don't notice them until, like the parasitic ones, until we're in a lowered emotional state, a lowered frequency, and then they'll kind of pop in on us and say, I can mess with this person, and then their ultimate goal is fear. They want to feed off of fear. So what I was thinking about with these, it's a stretch because I think there's more going on. I think it's more. Anyways, but so my thought at first when I first heard of these this missing 411 was in a house setting, right? These entities can come. I mean, you heard the story of people knocking. They hear a knock at the door. They open the door. Next thing you know, they got something nasty in their house. Now, and then most of the time it's because people are in a lowered emotional state, a vulnerable state of being, and then they get brought to that fear level where these things really seem to thrive, and it seems to be what they want. So I thought these people that are going missing in these national forests, they're not being chopped up by an axe murderer. They're not being eaten by a mountain lion. They're not. Some of them are found like they fell from a high up, but yet their bodies found, and they're not found near a cliff or a tree or anything that they could have fallen off of. But yet they're said to have died of their injuries. So were they taken up somewhere and then dropped, or were they taken into some
Well, like some of them, when they were found, had head injuries.
Yeah, exactly. But a lot of times they can't figure out how. How. But did you know? A lot of them have broken bones, but yet, But so I guess so many things I want to talk about. So I'm sorry if I'm jumping around.
No, but I'm still I'm still curious as to why you think it has something to do with water.
The data, the evidence. I mean, all my most legitimate cases that I've dealt with, that where I go to the house and I see things flying around, I see people being attacked. It's a legitimate active haunt, which people call a haunt, but there's a life form there. There's a life form there feeding off of people's vulnerabilities and their fear level, and so there's all the very, very strong active ones always have rivers and streams or some type of water body. It's usually rivers and streams, but I've seen it where there was lakes and stuff too. Now with these David Paulides, the 401, he says the same thing. He goes, I don't know what, but water has something to do with all this, and it's because I believe it's how these entities or these cryptids or whatever are coming and going, because in the flatberries that we're talking about, they're all surrounded by rivers and streams. You're seeing multiple UFOs. There's abductions. There's
okay. Let me ask you something else. That's the same description they give for Bigfoot.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, one of the flatberries we're working in, I saw a Bigfoot, and I'll tell you what, and I didn't want to admit this because I just, I know there's a lot of people on the fence about that, and they're like, oh, wow, we should have found this by now. But I'm telling you, when we went to this Pennsylvania flatberry case, I said, okay, if I'm lucky, because they were seeing UFOs since the 50s and stuff. It's 3 generations that lived on this property or whatever. I said, so if we're lucky, we'll get pictures of lights in the sky, and we did. We got pictures of UFOs. There was one of the homes. There was on this family-owned property. It's a large piece of property. There was 3 family homes, and in one of them they had shadow beings, some very tall shadow beings in their house that was really intimidating, scaring them a lot. So I said, okay, I'll get rid of those while we're there, but hopefully we'll also get pictures of these UFOs. So I went there. I got rid of the shadow people for the people. This is back in May of 2016. They haven't seen the shadow people since. They're gone, and we got pictures of the UFOs. But we went to one of the homes, and Paul got really he's got issues with certain metals and stuff, like an allergy or almost. And we went to one of the homes where there was supposedly like a meteor strike years ago, and Paul I could tell he was starting to look anxious, and then he just started to look like he couldn't concentrate, or there was something wrong. And so, this is Paul, everyone, Behind the Paranormal, and so I asked him, all right? And he's like, I gotta go lay down. So he went back to the main home where they had a finished basement with, it was almost like an apartment down there, and he went and took a nap. So I went to the camp area they have in the middle of their property in the woods. They have kind of thinned out the trees a little bit so their families can come with campers and everything. And there's a pavilion there. I was parked. It was pouring rain, just coming down. And I was wet, and I had the heat cranked, and the truck was idling. And so I'm getting my cameras ready, my trail cameras to set out that night, also trying to dry off. And when something catches my attention to my 1 or 2 o'clock, about 100 to 125, 150 feet or so, in that direction. So I look over, and I see what looked like 3 black things, and they're moving really weird, like bizarre. And then I realized, wait a minute, that's one thing, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm looking at, but the behavior was just like nothing I've ever seen before. So I'm trying to get a camera ready. I know I can't get a picture because it was just absolutely pouring, like you couldn't even believe how. And which is another with the missing 401. There's always a storm that comes in when someone goes missing. But it was just absolutely pouring. I started getting the camera ready to take a picture, but I knew I was going to get it. It was behind a thin tree line that was a tree line that separated 2 properties. I could see it clearly, but I'm like, it's not going to be definitive, like, if I take this photo. So I'm going to drive up there real quick and take the picture. I put it in drive, and I hit the gas, the thing took off, but before doing that, I took note that it was as tall as a keep out sign that was on a tree. It was standing right behind that tree, and it was a keep out sign, and it was as tall as that sign. So I go up there, it took off, it flushed 3 deers out of the woods. I went down the path, tried to cut it off, but it was long gone. I don't know where it went, it just gone. So I back up, I walk up to the tree, I walk to the sign with my boots on. I'm 6 foot tall. This top of the sign was like 7.5 to 8 foot tall, and it wasn't a bear. This thing had massive arms, like just huge arms, and it was so surreal. Like, I just never expected to see that. I'm open minded to everything, but I just never expected to see that, and it blew my mind. But this is, like I said, this is an area where there's UFOs seen all the time. We got pictures of them, and where there was a haunted house. So these are paranormal flat areas, and we got these weird things happening. All these areas are surrounded by rivers and streams. All the missing 411 are surrounded by rivers and streams. And, whatever, I think it's something, my personal opinion, it's got to be something either extraterrestrial, terrestrial that we don't know about, that's unconfirmed, because I know there are invisible life forms that live amongst us. And are you familiar with the Santilli telescope?
Actually, I was reading up on that the other night, but I didn't finish reading it. They've got, go ahead and tell them about that periscope. I was reading up on that.
So there's some people that, find it controversial, but I looked at the evidence of what they're capturing, and I found it very interesting, and it's something I'm going to look more into, but I have spent some time with it, but basically, this Dr. Santilli, he designed a telescope to look for dark matter, dark energy in the universe, and it has a special concave lens, and it uses ultraviolet rays and all this other stuff, and but what they started realizing, it was that, they're starting to see what they call terrestrial entities in our atmosphere, in our own atmosphere, moving around. Some of them look just like light streaks or whatever, but what was bizarre is, like, around power plants and like thunder clouds, they're seeing like these disc-shaped objects that are there, almost that we can't see with our own eyes, almost like they're kind of trying to absorb this energy. But there is visible and invisible light, and this is true. This is why cats and dogs can see things that we cannot, because they can see a different light spectrum. So there's things out there that we just can't see with our visible light spectrum. But there's things that live amongst us, and I think there's some things that allow those light frequencies to be altered and manipulated to allow us to see things from time to time. Sometimes we can't see them. They're there. They interact with us. Like, for instance, I was at the Pennsylvania Flap area. It was I think around 10:30 at night. It was pretty dark out. I was at the campsite in the middle of the woods, and Paul was at a different location. It was just he and I on that trip, and so I got out and I was kind of walking around, because all of a sudden everything just got quiet. Like, I'm talking like dead quiet. Like, it was so like Twilight Zone. Like, I couldn't hear nothing. It was almost like literally like I had like noise canceling headphones on. There was no noise at all, and it was kind of freaky. Like, it made me feel like I was in some kind of different reality, really. And so I start walking down towards the top of this hill where down the bottom hill people have seen strange lights that just appear, and then someone saw a Sasquatch years ago, when all of a sudden there was this just thud, like, behind me, like something jumped out of a tree or something and landed behind me, and then I heard what sounded like a horse or like a bull exhale, like real deep breath.
Wow.
And it was directly behind me, and I spun around expecting to see like some kind of animal, but there was nothing there. I couldn't see nothing there. I could see, it was dark, but I could see stuff. I should have been able to see if there was something standing right there, but I'm telling you, I could hear it breathing. It was standing right there. I I could feel its presence. I'm very scientific, but I'm sensitive too, which was what got me into all this. And I know for a fact there was something there, and it was big, and I couldn't see it with my own eyes. So there are things that that happen, you know, like I think rivers and streams can do this. I started doing tests. I sent you some photos. I don't know which ones.
I do. You sent me 5 of them, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So I started to do back in the late '90s. Started to do work with manipulating light frequencies because I strongly believe that there's these life forms that operate outside of our light spectrum. So I started to do different techniques. And there's one photo that I sent you that was actually taken by a teammate of mine who joined my team, Mike Sullivan. He took on that task, and he was my EVP specialist, but he started doing all kinds of like these photographs, and I don't think he understood why he was doing them, you know, but it went right along with my theory, and he started capturing weird photos. Like sometimes they look human, sometimes they look like aliens. Excuse me. Sometimes we got one that looks just like a Sasquatch, and it just is big, domed, brown head, you know.
You didn't? Did you send? You didn't send me that picture though.
No, I didn't. I will, and I should have. But it looks, you know. The problem is back then these digital cameras, you know, we're talking like in some of them, like I think the one I sent you was actually taken with like.
Okay, so describe which one you're talking about right now.
There's like it's kind of grainy because it was taken, like I said, with like a 1 megapixel Sony Mavic or something, but you know, we're talking way back in the day when these things just happened. But it looks like a little entity being standing there.
It's all blue. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, you can see the shoulders, the head, the eyes.
Okay, is it blue? Is it the blue one?
It's kind of bluish.
Okay, you sent me one that's all black with like a disc in the middle.
There's one that's the file is like 2018 0606 or something like that. I think that's the one.
You sent me a picture that's blue, it's a face in it, and I think that's your light picture, that you were experimenting with light.
Yeah,
then there's one that's all grainy with the footprints in the snow. Then the other one is like a fog, a mist with trees and dirt.
Oh, that was a clearer one, right?
Well,
a pretty clear photo, just that blur at the bottom.
Yeah. What's that?
That is what we see right before weird events happen. We've seen these in homes, and we've seen them in woods, and now they describe seeing these such things in some of these 411 cases where they see this blur happen, like, you know, like they're looking through saran wrap or like a warped mirror effect. And I like to describe it as heat off the pavement kind of swirling. I've seen these in haunted homes, and I've seen them in the woods. And so that photo I got in Pennsylvania, and that's a legitimate what these people are seeing in these 411 cases before someone goes missing.
Wow. Now, what's the one in the snow, the footprint in the snow?
That's another flap area here in New Hampshire where there was a whole track of them, probably 100 yards long. I followed the whole track. There was one after the other, and then all of a sudden they just disappeared. But they disappeared over a stone wall that had a lot of tree coverage at that point, and there wasn't a lot of snow, so I think that's why they disappeared. I don't think it just vanished. I think it just didn't have snow. But the one where we were manipulating the light frequencies, I don't know if you can. It's going to show.
Oh yeah. I got that. I'm gonna. You want me to show that to them?
The face is right there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You can see the shoulders and.
Okay, so how did you do this one?
That is used by manipulating light frequencies. So we're changing the direction, we're changing the frequency of it, and I think that's allowing it to come into our visible light spectrum. And so we do that by warping light, and it could be done by various reflective ways, but the surface has to be imperfect. And I think water does the same thing. But when we're talking about light frequencies, we're not just talking about a visual light. We're talking about information and actual things that are actually going to come through. it operates. So that's why I think in these areas that are surrounded by rivers and streams, that's why we're getting all kinds of different creatures that are showing up. The UFOs too.
Okay, I want to ask you a question. I know about water. When you do, because I've done that before. We've gotten images. Now the thing is that when we were doing the water experiments, we were also doing EVP sessions and talking and asking if somebody would come through. And then one night I was asking if Tony Soprano, the guy that paid Gandolfino, if he would come through, because I loved Tony Soprano, and I swear to you, we got an image of him in the water. So when you do these light experiments, do you also do EVP session at the same time to see who can come through?
Yeah, we have. The problem is, I have so many EVPs, and I even abandoned doing these photographic things too, because we were getting them every time. It almost became boring, and I proved to myself that my theory was it's got to be accurate, because we're getting these things every single time.
But when you get these light images, are you talking to a certain person, or do you ask anybody to come through? So is there a way that, like, you could get a real picture of somebody that has been deceased, and then go ahead and do your light experiment and see if they will show up, and compare the two to see if that is the person that's showing up? Have you tried that?
No, because I'll tell you why. Because we understand that usually the one that you're calling out to is not the one that's coming through. What you're dealing with is almost always these parasites that can, and this is known through history too. In every culture, it talks about this, and I understand them a little bit differently, but every culture has some kind of description of the same thing. I think we understand their how they operate a little bit better, the mechanics of it a little bit better than they did in the ancient cultures, but they all describe the same thing, and they can appear however they want to. They can appear based on, our emotional frequencies, and our thoughts all have frequencies, and they pick up on that. They know how to tap into us. They know how to push our buttons, so they can appear however they want. Like, so many cases that we've done over the years that started off as a little girl in a blue dress, and she's all cute, and then you start talking to her, and you buy into her, and next thing you know, it's not that cute little girl anymore. You're being torn apart. They're scratching you, they're pulling you out of bed at night, they're ripping your house apart. They're going to do whatever they can to get your attention, to get you, to be in a vulnerable state, and ultimately to get you to the fear level. And so that's their main goal, is the fear. So that's kind of what struck me at first. I keep leading to this with the missing 401, is whatever's taking these people, they're not really chopping them up. They're not like injured. It's not like, it's so bizarre because they're just found, and they were gone for months, and then all of a sudden they appear, and they'd only been dead for a little while, but yet they're not eaten by vultures or whatever, and they're there whole. So it told me that they're being taken somewhere out of reach of all these other predators and stuff.
But what's the purpose, though? But Shane, what's their purpose? Oh, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm getting at. So that's what I have to look at. What would be the purpose of that? So where they're not being killed, they're not being drained of their blood. It's not a sacrificial thing. They're not being raped or whatever. They're either being experimented on, or they're being taken by something that feeds off of fear, and they're probably being tormented to get as much fear out of them. I'm telling you, I can't explain it, but these entities, I've been doing this a long time, they feed off of fear. They need it from us, and they thrive off of it. So if they're in our home, they got us as long as they want, so they're not going to kill you. They're just going to stay around. They're going to feed off it as long as they can. But if they're out in the wilderness and you just got people passing by, they're going to take and use you as much as they can, and then throw you away. But I'm not sure if that's what's going on, the evidence seems to me that these people are being taken either underground or up high and being probably experimented on, or something being done to them, and then they're just being tossed aside, once they're worn out or whatever. It doesn't make sense that it's not an animal that's killing them. It's not, but people have called in saying they're being stalked, and I just think of that one case that's documented where this kid was melted like candle wax into the fence. That doesn't make sense.
I have never heard. I didn't hear about that one at all.
Yeah, and this is what happened in one of those clusters, and so, it's funny too, because right before all this happens, you get the storm that comes in. It's raining, and that hurts in the search for the people, but it also not only hurts the search because it's raining, it's harder for people to search or whatever, but it could also be washing away evidence. Now, we know that we can create rainstorms. Are you familiar with Wilhelm Reich?
No.
Wilhelm Reich, he was a scientist from way back. I think he died in the late 50s or something. He was a pretty brilliant scientist, actually. He worked with Einstein and stuff like that. But he created what was called a cloudbuster. It was like almost like these tubes of metal, like piping, and he attached like a cable to them, and he'd run the cable into like rivers and streams or whatever, and he would aim towards the sky, and he was able to make it rain. He even brought it to the desert where it hadn't rained for like, I don't know, it was something like 15 months, and he made it rain for like 2 weeks straight, or something bizarre like that. And he was able to, whenever he used this cloudbuster, he was able to successfully make it rain in areas that it hadn't rained for a while. The government came down on him too. He tried to ship some. He was told not to ship them. He couldn't ship them. They were really coming down on him for this technology. His associate ended up mailing one across state lines. He ended up getting put in jail, where he had ultimately died in prison. But he was brilliant, and he, through all this, when he's doing this, he had a home up in Maine where he was continuing his before he was incarcerated, was continuing his studies and stuff and his experiments. And there's actually, I think, a museum up there dedicated to him, his whole home or whatever, where you could see some of these things. But he became obsessed with UFOs because whenever he was using this cloudbuster, he had flying saucers showing up above his house, and it was like time and time again. And he's like, "There's something going on here," So we know we have that technology. It's a fact. We can make it rain. So being where the military bases are nearby, you got to consider that. I'm not saying I'm not locked down to that theory. I'm just saying you have to consider it because the facts are the facts. We know how to make it rain. It rains right before someone's taken, and it continues to rain thereafter. It could be to wash away evidence, DNA, radiation, whatever we're utilizing to make these people just vanish, because they vanished right next to somebody, and there was no sign of. I mean, I just looked at them, and 1 second later, they're gone. One guy claimed to have seen a fuzzy spot, like one of the photos I sent you, where the trees are, and then there's that blurry spot. He said he had seen something like that. I don't know if you showed that photo, but he put his foot into it, and his foot disappeared. He was walking towards it. His leg disappeared, and then he took his leg out and got out of there real quick because he said it was just something really wrong.
Are you talking about the one that I showed earlier with the bushes and this mist?
Like right in the middle of the mist, in the bottom.
Well, there's dirt, and then there's bushes, and then that misty. There was a mist.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the other one you sent me? It's bright lights. It's yellow and it's a real bright background. And it looks like, I don't know, like two deer legs in the middle.
Oh.
What's that one? I don't think you labeled it.
Can you see this? Is that? You can't see that.
I think that's probably it. It's yellow. It's a goldish background.
So that's a door frame, and the white square rectangle in the background. Can
Yeah.
you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a refrigerator. What happened was this is in Connecticut Flap area. There was activity happening in the kitchen. And the homeowner snapped this picture, and we've known this lady for years, and she's just awesome. And she's so fact based. She doesn't jump to conclusions. She's like us. She does this the way it needs to be done. But so you'll see like the French door on the right, and then there's the door frame, the refrigerator in the background. But just to the right of the door frame, in front of the refrigerator, you see what looks like a gray alien, and then there's like a weird smudging effect in front of it, almost like it's coming through some kind of dimension. But you can see like what looks like a gray alien. The two
Now, what
eyes
made
and
you
nose.
take that picture?
She took it because there was something going on in her kitchen.
Oh.
She was there by herself. Her house has everything going on. She saw an alien sharing the same spot as her vanity. It was standing within her vanity in her bathroom. But she's got weird stuff happening in her house. You got legs that are hanging through a ceiling, walking like you see them from the knee down, walking like they're walking on the floor, but yet they're sticking through the floor.
Oh my gosh!
Just all kinds of strange stuff going on in her house. She's seen cryptids near her home. There's been UFO sightings near her home. So it's all connected. They're all utilizing the same mechanics to come through.
Well, you know what's crazy about that picture is I see a face. On the bottom left, I see a face. I see a face in there. And also on the right, in that white triangle, I see like a pig face, an animal face. I don't know if the viewers are seeing that as well, but I can certainly see a man's face in there, a male face in there.
Yeah, I just got my phone right now that I'm looking at, but it's that there's what looks like a gray alien just walking into the door frame, like he's walking,
is that the pig face? It looks like a pig face.
But yeah,
wow.
I'm telling you, there's no lack of weird things that we see and that happens in these areas. So, and that's all these missing 401 areas are. They're just flap areas, but it's funny to me that, okay, what's so different about those flap areas? And actually, there's an area I said this already, in Pennsylvania and Connecticut where we're working in these flap areas where there are a cluster of missing people as well. So that ties in hand. But these flap areas, so it's like, why do some of these national forests, have so many missing people in them?
Yeah.
You got to think of the only reasons is because this would be an area where only the government could investigate because they own the forest. So outside investigators aren't welcome. We do our own investigations. So that's why it's chosen. That's why it's chosen. And I firmly believe, David Paulides says the same thing. I agree with him. It's being covered up. They don't want to talk about it. They know what's going on. I don't know whether they have a part in it or they're just tolerating it, but they know what's happening. They absolutely know what's happening, and for sure. And they're trying to as hard as they can to cover it up. But good luck, because we're on the case. You got a lot of people interested in this subject now, and they're not going to be able to cover it up for too long because this has become a very intriguing, interesting subject. I mean, for me, and because it's real. There's no doubt. You can't argue with the facts. People are being taken, being killed.
Are you going to continue working, investigating these 411 cases as well?
I absolutely am, more than I have been. I think it's going to become a really strong interest of mine. David's he's got a lot of connections in law enforcement and stuff like that, so he's been doing a really good job. And but I think he's real strong in that area, but I think he lacks the experience in the weird stuff, the supernatural and the paranormal, which I have a lot of experience in. So I think this ain't happening by just a regular serial killer, you know, because they don't chop you up. They're just found dead. You know, it doesn't make sense. And the fact that they're being taken in these what we call flap areas in the rivers and streams, they're being found in water bodies, which tells me it's logically it could either be, like I said, to cover up evidence, wash away radiation, DNA, or whatever, or that's just where they're left when they're brought back from wherever they're being brought. And I think we might be talking about a multiversal type of thing, you know.
Well, you know, recently there's a story that's going around. 6 hunters disappeared.
Oh, really?
Yes, and I haven't been able to check out that story because that's one I want to air. 6 hunters went into the woods to go hunting, and they vanished. All of them vanished.
See, and that don't make sense. They all have guns, right? That don't make sense.
Yeah.
You know, one get picked off, and then the other ones get locked and loaded, but it doesn't seem to matter, huh? They just gone. You know.
So the ones that the bodies that they did find, and there's not that many, they were like that one doctor. It was snowing, so they couldn't find him. So when the snow melted, they found him in the ravine by like a little creek. And then the other bodies that were never found they found evidence that were like up in the hills and up in the rocks.
Right.
Where there
it's so bizarre. It's like, did you hear about the one where they found somebody went missing? They were gone for a while. They put out search, and then finally they ended up finding the body encased in ice in a pond that wasn't frozen at all. It wasn't even cold enough to be frozen, but yet the body was encased in ice, but the pond wasn't frozen. I mean, just stuff that doesn't make sense, you know.
Was it a body? Because I did see something on the web where it was an animal that was encased in ice.
Yeah, a body of a human as well.
That's weird. Wow.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I mean, it just so many weird things. I mean, and you're familiar with there was I know I talked about this already, but there was an FBI agent that was, even though, they had their own investigators in the National Forest, but there would be like an FBI agent that would be sent to, I think he mostly worked in the Rocky Mountain missing 401 cases and stuff, but it was the same guy that used to go there and just kind of like overlook the investigation by the park rangers or whatever. And like I said, he just weeks before he was said to retire, they found him dead. They said suicide, but that doesn't make sense to me. You're just ready to retire. You're going to kill yourself, or were they afraid of whatever he knew getting out? And he was murdered.
Well,
you know.
Do these invisible entities? Hey, are they like? The monster that was in Predator, are they like that?
You know what's funny? There's a lot of reports of that going on right now. There's videos that are being put out there of what look like that. I've seen similar things in the woods, and I've seen them in homes too. But I see them right before something happens. Like sometimes in these nasty haunts, and I would call them haunts, but they're actual life forms that are popping through from a different. Through the multiverse or something, you know, through a different parallel, they're popping in. And sometimes you'll hear a loud snap, like a shock, like when you touch a door and you get a loud, but it's louder than that. It's the same kind of like shock that when you touch metal, and then all of a sudden, sometimes there's a smell associated with it, and other times there's not. But then immediately after, things start moving around the house, and then other times you'll see what looks like heat off the pavement, but it's swirling, and you can see it in the middle of the room, and you're like, you know, I saw that in Woonsocket, Rhode Island back in 1998, and I got up and I stood in the doorway and I couldn't make out nothing in the room, and then it started to dissipate, and once it went away, I saw this entity in the back of the room staring at me, and it didn't look fully human. I mean, it had black eyes.
Mm.
It hated me, and but at the same time, it was afraid of me because I wasn't afraid of it. And so, but I took a picture of it too. I have a photo of that. But you know, it looked like heat off the pavement. Like it was just swirling. And I've seen these in the woods before. I've seen them in trees. But sometimes they're not just swirling about, and then all of a sudden something starts happening. Sometimes I've seen this a couple times in these flat areas where it looks like kind of like the Predator thing. Like, you know, things are moving around. You know, the air is moving around, and everything's getting distorted behind it. But you can see what's behind it, and then it moves away and it disappears. But there's something to it. I mean, I've been doing this way too long where I don't exaggerate this stuff. I collect evidence and facts, and I try to break down and understand each facts, because I have, you know, a pretty like crazy, obsessive, thirsty mechanical aptitude where I have to understand how everything works. I just don't take it at, you know, you tell me, okay, there's Sasquatch out there. Well, okay, I need to understand how. I need to understand why. You know, I need to understand. So that's how I kind of approach everything. So I don't just make this stuff up. And so I can only recall how I've seen it. Some things we don't understand yet, but I've seen exactly what you described, kind of like that Predator thing. And I haven't seen a lot, but the swirling heat off the pavement effect right before something comes through and the house or area becomes active, I've seen that many times.
Wow. If these invisible entities can pick up on your fear and other emotions that you have of pain and anger, can they also manipulate your thoughts, do you think?
Eventually. It doesn't start out that way, but eventually what I tell people is at first, you know, when we're in an emotional state of being, we got lowered frequency, and they're drawn to that. They're like, okay, I can mess with this person. It's weird. It's hard to explain, but it's weird. It's almost like a two-way radio connection. You have to be on the same frequency in order to communicate. If you're on, you know, 150 megahertz here and 80 megahertz here, you just can't hear each other, and it doesn't work. So it's almost like when we're lowered. Do you know, like when you are in a lowered emotional state of being, a lowered emotion, that your frequency, measurable frequency, is often equivalent to other parasitic life forms such as cancer and mildew and mold and stuff like that, things that feed off of other life forms. You become equivalent. So that's what I'm saying. You're almost tuned like a two-way radio. And so it's no coincidence that 3 times I've gotten rid of someone's nasty parasitic haunting. Did their cancer disappear at the same time? That's happened 3 times. And the doctors were like, what happened? Like, you know, you were just terminal, and now your cancer is not even to be found on X-ray.
Oh, let me ask you then. So if somebody is ill with cancer and they have other things beside cancer, but maybe the cancer might be kind of like in remittance, and this person has entities that show up and they're negative in their home. If these entities continue to visit this person will stay ill. But if this entity or these entities can made to disappear or not come back and make any more visitation, would this person become better?
Not always, but I first thought that, okay, you know, we get rid of the entity, and then the you know, the cancer disappears. That doesn't make sense, because you know why? Because the entity arrived the same time the cancer arrived, and then they both came and left at the same time. There's not a coincidence. I mean, it's definitely not a coincidence, I should say. There's something to that. And like I said, we call them parasitic life forms that affect people. They're also, you know, emotional frequencies can be equivalent to other parasitic life forms such as cancer, mold, mildew, as well as these parasites. So it's a two-way radio connection. So we, get people to change their thinking, change their emotional state of being, get them on a more positive path, get them to not pay attention to these entities because they need your attention. Understand that you're in control of its ability to stick around, and not to fear them because they're actually just cowards, and you can just do away with them by just changing those things that I mentioned. And once they realize that and they do everything that I say, the entity cannot communicate with you anymore. It's literally like a frequency connection. It's like being connected like a two-way radio. And that's I think also some of the rivers and streams, these flap areas, that's what's allowing these things to come through and kind of interact with us, because I think these rivers and streams are manipulating light, energy, and those frequencies, that are needed to bring these things into our existence. There's a lot going on in the multiverse, and it just takes usually, like, all right, for instance, just to kind of like explain that a little bit better, you probably all your listeners have heard of the term residual haunting.
Yes.
I don't like residual haunting. I don't like that term. I don't like the definition of it. I don't believe your house is a DVR. I don't think it can record events. But what I do look at when I look at the most legitimate haunts that look like they're just replaying. They're not intelligent. They're not interacting with you. They just seem to replay events that took place in the past. They all take place in areas where there was a strong, emotional, dramatic event, a murder, Gettysburg, an asylum. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Places where there was just a lot of hard, like, emotional, dramatic events. Those dramatic events in space-time is like throwing a rock into a pond. It creates ripples. Those ripples cross over into our parallel, into our segment, allowing us to witness things that happen at a different time. Those emotional frequencies, and I can't say that word enough. Even Tesla said, if you want to understand the universe, look in the way of light, energy, and frequency. And I absolutely agree with that. And that's what I'm finding with my work is this is all frequency based. And so our emotions have frequency. And so when there's these emotional, driven, dramatic events, we're able to witness some of that because of these emotional frequencies. And that's why love is probably the most powerful emotional energy and frequency out there. It's capable of doing so many great things, and these parasites hate that. They don't want that, so they want to cause disruption in our governments, in our countries, in our lives personally, and that they want to hold us back spiritually, and I think that's what their goal is. But they say the opposite of the love is the hate. So, but I don't think hate's the equivalent in the opposite direction of love. I think it's fear. I think fear is the equivalent to, or not, or close to the equivalent of love in the opposite, in the way that it's what keeps us back from everything in life. It keeps us back spiritually. It keeps us back from personal growth. I want to go after that new career, but I'm afraid I'll fail. Fear is the biggest thing that just holds us back from becoming better as a planet, better as human beings. And we need to stop being fearful. We need to start loving more and understanding that. I mean, I'm going off on a tangent because, just like I said, there's so many things I want to talk about, but that's I think a very important message for everyone to listen to, because it's what I've seen.
I'd like to go back to the residual haunting. So the residual haunting this is what I understand it to be, is when a haunting occurs at the same time each night or day, and they do the same thing each time. They'll walk down the steps at the same hour every night, or they'll appear. Now those hauntings at Gettysburg, I'm not convinced that those are residual. I believe they reenact what they do in their own time at that particular time that it happened. But to me, a residual is when it's the same act that a spirit does. Now, why that happens, I can't figure out. I cannot figure out why they would do the same thing. So when humans, and humans have seen that, and I have witnessed it myself, when they do the same thing over and over, is it just an image that we are seeing from another dimension, or is that ghost actually doing that each time? Or is it just like a playback, when you play back a movie over and over?
Yeah, I think my feeling on that is like I said, it's like when picture throwing a rock into the pond and it creates ripples, and you have ripple after ripple after ripple. So each time a ripple crosses over, it bleeds over into our existence, our parallel. We're able to witness that event at that time. And there's that's how I picture it, based on the work that I've done. But those are a lot more rare than people think. Your more active type stuff in that regard, and as far as the paranormal goes, are the parasites. They're far more active than anything else that goes on. And we don't believe they're ghosts of the dead. They're not. It's not Uncle Joe mad because you inherited his house and you painted the walls a different color. He doesn't like it. It's not how it works. And I've done houses where I've moved in, where people have moved in, lived there for years and years and years, but then all of a sudden something happens in their life and it becomes active. They have this parasitic life form in their house, and creating havoc, feeding off their fear frequency. And like I said, they're not just. I don't believe they're demons or whatever, just floating around. I don't think they're. I think they're an actual life form, and I really do. Whether they're terrestrial, there's evidence to support that they've always been here, because it goes back as far as documentation goes. That all the cultures, every country, have talked about these things for as far back as can be recorded. That there's these parasitic life forms that live here. Were they here before us? They could have been. Where did they come here from somewhere else? Are they terrestrial or are they extraterrestrial? We don't know. We know there's extraterrestrial among us too that come to visit, but they feel different to me because I've had encounters with both, and like close encounters, and it's a lot different. These parasitic entities feel a lot different to me, and even though sometimes they appear to be the same, but even in the activity ways too, like I work in ufology and communicate with a lot of prominent people in that field too, and a lot of these abduction cases, once people have a close encounter, say with the UFO, now they have like poltergeist activity happening in their house, so sometimes the activity in the home seems to be the same, but to me the two don't feel the same, if that makes sense. These parasites are a lot more nasty, and their agenda is pretty simple. They just literally, like, it's hard to understand, but it's literally the only thing I've been able to deduce is they feed off of our emotional frequencies, our energies, especially fear. They need us at that fear level, but they're out there,
Okay, so then these parasitic invisible entities, they are usually around water, creeks, but not necessarily in the woods, because if there's a farmhouse, like I aired a show with Paul Eno, there was a farmhouse, but military was close by. That house had the same thing. So is there any other being that you would consider a parasitic entity? What about like black-eyed children or shadow people, Hat Man? What about those? And what about Bigfoot and all? Now another thing is what I've noticed. Oh my gosh! Before it used to be like Bigfoot, then it escalated to Lizard Man and Goat Man, and I can't even name you all the different cryptids that are showing up now, and this has been going on for quite some time. What's with that? Do you have any explanation for that?
Well, things that we have seen. I mean, now I don't take until I see it and experience it for myself. I can listen to what people say, but I don't take them for real because, especially today, where everybody wants to trend on YouTube and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And YouTube's great, but there's all kinds of other venues where people are trying to trend and stand out. So there's all kinds of fake junk out there, and you don't know what to believe anymore. So I take everything that seems credible, and I'll go after and look at it. The shadow people, like I heard somebody was saying, "Oh, this lady invented shadow people." What do you mean she invented them? Like she didn't discover them either, because they've been talked about for a very long time. I've encountered them long before she was talking about, but so did other people, like other they go back way long time ago. But the fact of the matter is that things are just becoming a lot more active, and if I sat here and said I knew why, I'd be lying, because nobody really knows why. But something is changing, something is happening that are making these things cross over a lot more frequently than they were before, and we got a lot of different things apparently. I'm going to keep an open mind to a lot of it. A lot of it I've never experienced, but we seem to have like a ton more dogman sightings lately, like from seemingly credible people, and they're all popping up in the flap areas as well. So it's not like they're being being seen in weird areas. They're being seen in known flap areas that we've known about, and so it just
what about these?
There's something happening for sure.
What about these cloaked entities?
Well, that I believe we have that technology too. I mean, I know we do. What they are, I mean, we have that technology, so others might have that technology, but also, like I said, it could be not that they're necessarily cloaked, but they're just operating in a different light spectrum, and we might just be seeing glitches of them, as they move about, as they might bend or move light as they move, around. It may not be just an invisibility cloak or something technology-wise. I'm sorry. It could be just something outside of our visual light spectrum, and so these are all things like. One thing I'll never do, and I hope the listeners appreciate, is I'll never lock down to a certain theory. I'll just provide what makes sense to me, because I just look at through my experience and try to connect dots and just compile evidence and see what kind of makes the most sense, so I know which direction I'm going to lean towards. And so those are the areas I've been talking about tonight. But like I said, there's a lot going on. I've seen it, I've experienced it, and but these missing people. I mean, it's not it's I don't even believe it's Bigfoot. I don't believe it's Bigfoot. I mean, that's just I just get a hunch that it's not Bigfoot. I think it's, if anything, it'd be more. I'd lean more towards something terrestrial, which could be Bigfoot too, but something or extraterrestrial, or even possibly secret, something secret, because it just makes sense. Something is happening in an area where the normal person can't go and investigate. These investigations are being led by our government, and I'd like to think that they wouldn't be doing all these experiments on people, but it just, I mean, you kind of got to put that into consideration. Why is it mostly happening in areas where regular law enforcement can't go and investigate, and it's happening in areas that are protected, and it's being covered up. You can't get this information. They say they don't have documentation. They don't keep logs, but they keep logs of every movie that's ever been made in the state or national forest, but they don't keep logs of missing people. That makes absolutely no sense. And then when David Paulides asked for it, it was going to cost like millions of dollars, So it just, they're covering up. I mean, what's going on, they have to.
Yeah.
And there's something really bizarre, and it's dark no matter how you look at it.
Oh yeah, there's been people that have told me that they've tried to talk to these park rangers and they refuse to talk about it. They just won't talk about it. But there's also like disappearances. Like we did a show recently on the American Day at Love Pass, where these 5 mentally they weren't really bad mentally handicapped, because 2 of them had driver's license, and they got off of their beaten track and they went up into the mountain, and there was no rhyme or reason for them to go up there, and they only found they found, I think I think they found 1 body. I can't remember now. But there was no reason for them to go up there at all.
Right.
And they were in their car. They got out of their car. They got in their car. They got out of their car. They scattered on foot into a snowstorm. And that was that. What about, you've heard about the case of the Day at Love Pass in Russia?
Yeah, I've heard about the American one too, but the details are like you, I don't remember everything. But yeah, I know about the one in Russia as well.
So, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, very strange. I find it odd. Like, whenever someone's stalked and killed, but yet they're not eaten. I mean, that's the nature of animals, right? If they're going to stalk you and kill you, they're going to eat you. And then the next logical thing would be a serial killer, but they're going to stab you or shoot you, or you know what I mean? These people but those people were actually found, like they were beaten though, right? If I remember.
Oh my God, they had all kinds of injuries, and one had their eyes gouged out, and the other one had the tongue ripped out. Yeah. Ripped out while she was still alive.
Jeez. Yeah. I mean, there's so many dark things out there and dark humans that are killing people, but yeah, some of these things, it doesn't make sense. I mean, there doesn't seem to be a logical, like with the most of the missing 401, there seems to be no logical explanation for this happening, and certainly not being murdered or killed by an animal or a person. They're being taken somewhere, and something's happening to them, and then they die, and then they get dropped back off. So, and I'll tell you, the only reason why that would happen is so people will stop looking, and they can get out of this area so we can do it again, And same thing with these rainstorms that happen right before they happen. So that tells me that either someone's utilizing technology to make it rain, so it makes it harder, because these dogs don't even, they can't even find a track on these people. They won't. I have a German Shepherd, and I'll tell you what, in my house, kind of big, I could take his favorite ball or a bone, I could hide it in any part of this house that I want, and I guarantee you, he won't see me do it. I'll let him back in the house. He'll find that bone or ball in 5 minutes, within 5 minutes, easy. But these dogs show up, these highly trained dogs, and they just lay down sometimes. They can't find a track, they can't find nothing. So either if something's carrying them away on foot, they're carrying them up a river maybe, because they're usually taken by rivers, or near rivers, and maybe that's what's washing away the track. But that doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes it's just in the middle of nowhere, and the dog doesn't have a scent, and they can't get it. Even with the rain, right away, I don't think it'd be enough to keep these dogs off the scent. It's kind of weird, but if something is either creating the rain before they do their process, before they carry out whatever they're doing, or they're intelligent to know that they look at the Weather Channel and say, "Oh, it's going to rain. I'll do it now. I'll plan it around the storm." But it seems to happen every single time. It starts raining, boom, someone goes missing, and then it rains for days, and it makes the search difficult. This is You know what I mean? It's something intelligent. It's something with an agenda, and where they're being taken. They're being taken somewhere because I just, I work in a lot of different areas, not just the paranormal, and I've worked in a lot of investigative areas, and sorry, I got the I think I have mosquitoes in here, but opened the window and I forgot to put the screens back in over the winter. We had wreaths hanging out, but anyway, and but if someone was to die, for one, like I said, we talk about they're gone for months, and then by the time they're found, they've been dead only a few days or something like that, or a couple weeks, but yet they're not ravaged by vultures or wolves or coyotes or raccoons or they'll take a quick meal anytime, and it doesn't make sense to me. They're dying somewhere else and they're being placed. We know they're being placed after they're dead, after they've been taken. So they're being taken somewhere.
I think the only thing is they can't explain why they would find no body, but the clothes would be folded.
Yeah, well, that football player I brought up earlier, this guy was like 6'1" or 6'2", 240 pounds of solid muscle. Calls his wife, I'm being followed. He goes missing. She sent friends out. They looked. They called for help, and they couldn't find. They eventually, I don't know how long it took, but they ended up finding him dead. All his clothes were taken off of him. His fishing suspenders were the only thing that was put back on him, but they were on backwards. Made no sense. So something stripped him down and redressed him the wrong way, which actually is a common occurrence in alien abduction stories too.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, very common.
I didn't know that. Really?
Yeah, Kathleen Martin of MUFON, she's the director of abduction research for MUFON, and she also works with the Free organization. She's in our circle. I've communicated with her a bunch, but yeah, she'll tell you that it's a very common occurrence where these people not only sometimes that are abducted, that they pass lie detector tests. Kathleen Martin's also Betty and Barney Hill's niece, but
no kidding.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, just to give her credit real quick, she could have rode that and gotten popular because of that, but she's done a lot more than that. The work that she's put out there on her own has been outstanding, and she created her own body of work, and she's fantastic. But basically, they do hypnotic regression and all this other stuff, and also some of these lie detector tests and on these people that seem very legit, but they're being abducted. They're coming back with their clothing on wrong, backwards, or only partially clothed, or clothes that don't even belong to them sometimes. So
I did several shows with alien abductees, and they never said that ever.
Yeah,
Wow.
It's a very common. And another show, but I have my own experience with stuff like that. But yeah, so it's kind of what they're seeing with this too. And the other weird thing, like I said, they're being taken somewhere. They're not being held on the ground where they're taken. They're not being held. They're being brought somewhere, because a lot of these people that are found shoeless, but they have their socks on, and their socks are clean as can be. Like, not like they were walking through the woods in their stocking feet, these white tighty whities,
Yeah.
Socks, walking trudging through the woods. They're found, and their socks are completely white as could be, like with no dirt or debris on them whatsoever.
Yeah.
They're taken, they die, they're placed somewhere. Their socks are still white as could be. It just. I mean, when I look at how I do my research and I connect dots, I look at trends. They're being brought somewhere. I'm sure of that, and they're being brought somewhere off of our level. Like, I don't know if it's, like I said, we got to keep an open mind to everything until we can rule things out and also prove things. We got to kind of like entertain all theories, but I think the ones that make the most sense based on the work that we've done through the years is they're either being brought to another parallel, or they're being brought underground, or they're being brought up. But they're certainly not being held down here. I mean, there's no
Wow. You know, I hope you continue researching those 411 cases, because I'm not sure if anybody else does except for David Paulides, but it would really be nice to get other answers and other opinions from somebody else. And I would love for you to come back with some cases and give us your opinion on what you think happened to these people.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I want to firsthand, like I want to get in there. I want to go to these areas. I want to check it out. Like I said, I just happened upon this, and I heard an interview with David, and I thought he did a great job, and you know, describing everything that's going on. I personally, my personal thought, I think when he first started out doing this, he might have, you know, thought he had it locked down. I thought, you know, some of his earlier interviews, it sounded like he might have thought it was like Sasquatch. I don't think he thinks that much anymore. I could be wrong, but I think he's almost afraid to say, you know, one of the possibilities. I don't think because he won't say what he thinks it is out loud.
No.
And I think one of those possibilities could put him in danger. I've kind of talked about it tonight because I just don't care. You know, I've talked about this stuff on your show, some of my theories, and oh, by the way, I still get daily. I get phone calls and emails from people from just a show I did like over a year ago with you.
That was, oh my God, that was a fabulous show, and I have to download it on my channel and replay it so I can get it back on my main channel, because that was an awesome show, and I'm really glad. You know, that makes me happy that that's happening.
I get so many people thanking me, and you know they say, "Oh, you're the only one that could help me," and it's like, and I don't say that to be egotistic. I say that because it makes me feel awesome, because it's why I do these shows, because there's so many people that I can't get to that may not know me otherwise until I show up on a popular show like yours, and they'll be like, "Oh, the Shane guy," and then I'll check it out, and then and then they take my advice and the stuff that I talked about on that show about the parasitic entities and everything, and they apply it to their situation, and it works. And so I get just an outpouring, and it's you have a tremendous following, and I appreciate them all. So I mean, I really love your show, and your followers. They've been good to me for sure.
Well, I love having you on. You know. These cases too, because I have referred several to you as well. It's just not these parasitic, invisible. People believe that they're being attacked, or they've got demonic happenings in their home and in their personal life, and that's where you come in.
Right.
Everybody calls it demonic. I don't know that much about all this stuff, but whenever anything is very negative, they always call it demonic. And of course, I don't know anybody else that's always been willing to help somebody, and that's why I refer those cases to you when somebody comes to me.
Yeah, when I started doing the work, it's like, you know, I had to look at, unlearn everything I thought I knew, and I started to realize a few things. Why, so if they're demons in the classic sense of, you know, theology and all this other stuff, and so, you know, the priest comes in, he should be able to get rid of this thing, but the majority of the time it didn't work. And when I started doing this a long time ago, I'm like, well, there's got to be a reason why it doesn't work all the time. And when it does work, there's got to be a reason why it does work. And then how come it works sometimes for a little while, and then all of a sudden it comes back again? There's got to be a reason for that. So I started connecting those dots, and the reason for is the religious aspect. It's a tool. There's different religious, techniques and stuff like that. Whether you're going to smudge or holy water, this or that, you're almost fighting the paranormal with the paranormal, but you're ignoring the fact that we are participants in the interaction between the entity and us. There needs to be a connection between the two of us, like that two-way radio. So a lot of the religious practices ignore that fact, or they just don't understand it. So they go in there and they try to scare this thing away. Well, if that tactic didn't have an effect on the person emotionally, then it won't have an effect on the haunt away, but they go back to old thinking, old, emotional state, and boom, this thing comes back worse than ever. And, to tell a quick story, I helped this lady in the east coast of southern Connecticut, probably like 4 years ago, and 72-year-old lady was contacted by her daughter, 51-year-old lady. Both ladies were very successful in their life, very intelligent, and the mother was being in the middle of the night. Something was grabbing her by her feet and pulling her to the bottom of the bed. Wasn't letting her sleep. Like, as soon as she started to fall asleep, she'd get pulled to the bottom of the bed. The sheets would get pulled off of her. She'd be held down. She'd hear other things while she'd being held down. Other things running around the room. So her daughter stayed with her one night, put one leg over her leg just to hold her down to make sure that she was going to stay put. And she was trying to comfort her mother. She said she never witnessed anything in the home. She had lived in the home, as a kid. It's a house that they lived in a long time, but now all of a sudden it's haunted, or in quotations haunted. And so she goes in. All of a sudden, she goes, something changed in the room, and I saw a head starting to pop up from the bottom sheet of the foot of the bed, and it started to slide up towards us really fast. She said, I jumped out, ripped down the sheets, and there was nothing there, and it was quiet for the rest of the night. The mother, one night, had something come into the room, hold her down. She was being held down, but she was also being raped, she said. And now she had gone through menopause years ago, never had any show or nothing like that for many, many years. She got up after this event took place. She went in the bathroom, and she had a lot of show going on. I just try not to make it too graphic.
She was actually raped by a spirit, an entity. So that's possible.
Yep. So basically, this story is disturbing. So, but this is a true story though, and so she had contacted two famous groups. If I said the names of either group, you would know. One's an individual that has a group. The other, a demonologist that has a group, and your listeners would know the names. I'm not going to say the names, but brought those in. I think brought a priest in too at one point. Did certain things to try to get rid of this thing, and it didn't work. It came back worse and worse. So I forget how they heard of me, anyways, but they finally reached out to me, and I went down. It was as simple as, so how long have you lived here? They lived there for a long, long time. What changed in your life when all this started taking place? And because something had to have changed. You lived here problem-free for so many years, and then all of a sudden, you have this horrific stuff happening. She goes, well, my husband, she was married to a guy who was a diabetic, double amputee. He needed a lot of care, so she would spend her days, they were both retired, obviously, and she would spend her days with him, taking care of him. Also, they were in love, and just having conversations all day, and then she had something to occupy her and keep her doing something out of love, and so he passed away, and when he passed away, that's when all this started happening. So she had nothing to occupy her in a positive manner. She all her kids were gone. She doesn't see her family all that much. She sees her daughter and grandkids, somewhat often, but so she had a lot of time at home just to dwell. In your older years, we reflect on on our lives and stuff, and the first part of her life wasn't good at all. So she fell back into memories of that, and the memories were that her father molested her whole time at living at home, and it started at a very young age, kindergarten age type, all the way up, and he would crawl into her room, and I apologize to your listeners. I'm not going to say anything that's going to get us in trouble. It's disturbing. He would crawl into her room on his hands and knees like he was sneaking. He didn't want her to see him. He would grab her by her ankles and pull her down to the bottom of the bed, where he would molest her in multiple different ways. And that's exactly what this entity was doing to her when she became emotionally vulnerable. This entity knew exactly how to get to her to that fear level, and to keep her there by doing the same thing that was done to her when she was a child. And so, I had to counsel her through that and make her understand that, that's not a good thing to have gone through. But I said, look what you've accomplished in life. You have a beautiful home. You have a great family. You know, you're successful. You're a strong woman, very intelligent woman. And I said, so everything that happened to you made you who you are today. Love who you are. Be who you are. And I said, and she goes, do I have to forgive my father? I said, no. You know what? And almost every religious practice or whatever, they're going to say, yes, forgive your father. I say, no, I wouldn't. But you have to accept. Acceptance is so important. You don't have to forgive, but you do have to accept that it happened and acknowledge it and just love who you are and just move on. And so she did everything that you know, that I said, and you know, and I've gotten emails up until the last year or so that with updates saying that everything's fine. That they hadn't had one experience with this entity at all, and it was happening very regularly, almost every single night.
Oh my God!
So that's how these things work, and that's why I won't talk about, like, I know anything for fact, but that's one area that I will say that I'm almost 100% sure that we've been able to kind of like figure that aspect out, because without those emotional energies, the attention, the fear, the vulnerable emotional states, these things cannot interact with you. They cannot exist, and they won't. They just won't. And so,
were you able to help her?
Oh yeah, she hasn't had one thing happen since I left.
God.
And I gave her the information. Here's what we're going to do. I got her on a more positive path and kind of had to counsel her through her feelings and everything. And so once she realized that she was going to be in control of this situation, she took control of it, and this thing hasn't come back yet. I mean,
Shane, turn around. Look at...
Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at something over there. So apologize for that. No, I live in a flap area, so I got a lot of things happening here. So that's gonna be a whole nother show, because I got a lot of stuff here, but not haunted stuff. I got other things happening outside, so which is great.
Oh, well, because there's another topic I want you to come back on. I'm not going to tell the viewers, but you know what it is, and I want you to come back. And then we can talk about that outside, too. There's two people I wanted to ask you. Let's see. Kathy Salento. Royce, when he was out in the woods and near the lakes, when you saw the things you saw, did you feel any odd energies along with them?
Which one was this? Like outside by the lakes?
Yeah, when you were outside by the lakes, did you feel anything or see anything or pick up on it, any energies, anything odd?
I don't know which one we're referring to.
Maybe just in general when you go out in the woods?
Yeah, when I go into the woods and something weird happens, yes. And I'll tell you what happens to me, and it's been described by others that I'm familiar, that I'm comfortable with, that I know I've worked with, and I trust in what their words are, what they say and their experiences, is the first thing that happens to me when I'm out in the woods and I'm in an area that's a flap area is almost always my body starts to buzz, and I can't explain it. Sometimes I'm thinking, like, if I'm sitting in a vehicle, or if I'm, because a lot of times you're staking out, and I find if I'm sitting somewhere outside, then I'm worried about my scent, if supposedly if there's Sasquatch creatures, so like sometimes I like to just sit in the vehicle, so it'll kind of mask that or whatever, and so sometimes I wonder, is there something wrong with my car? Like, it's literally like bzzz, like my body's buzzing. It's happened when I was outside of the vehicles as well. And then the next thing that happens is sometimes it just, like, everything just goes dead. Like, you can't hear nothing. It's literally, like I said, like you have noise canceling headphones on, and you start feeling like, do, like you're in some other weird dimension. And then one thing that happened to me in Pennsylvania, like I said, it was like something jumped out of a tree. I heard it exhale, turned around, didn't see anything, but I knew something was there. And so my reaction in all of this is usually if anything seems somewhat aggressive in this, it usually seems to really go after that fear that we have. Now, I'm not afraid of any of this stuff, and because I understand you can't be, because if you are, you could get yourself in trouble. So I literally just smiled, and I put my hand up, and I just stood there for a minute, and I moved to the right a little bit, and then I stopped and I looked back, and then I saw just like trees move. It only in that one spot. It was almost like wind blew by through that one section of the woods, but there was no other trees moving, just that one section, and then it was gone. But that night, actually, that night I heard what sounded like two things communicating, but I couldn't understand what they were saying. It was a different language, and I'm out in the middle of the woods. It's got to be like 2 in the morning. And I hear one deep voice and then one higher pitched voice. And if you look up Sierra recordings, it sounded a lot like that. And I forgot all about that. Those recordings, I had heard those a long, long time ago, but I had forgotten all about it. And then I heard what I heard, and then I was describing it to our friend Alexander Petikoff. And he goes, "Oh, it sounds like the Sierra recordings." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, yes, it does actually." And it was just really weird. It was like, and then I hear the, and there was one on one side of the camper and one on the other side. And it was funny because I was recalling this when we were in Pennsylvania. We were just out there like a month ago or so, and they dubbed it they're like, "Oh, it sounds like a drunken samurai." I'm like, actually, yeah, it kind of did, but I heard it and I listened to it back and forth. I had already kind of set myself to retire that night, but next time I go out there, I'm going to set up audio recorders. I have so many of them. I'm just going to set them everywhere, and I don't care how much work it takes to listen back at all of them. I'm doing it,
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. That vibration that you talk about, when I used to be a paranormal investigator, there was a location not too far from our house, maybe an hour and a half away, out by Stockton, and it was an old stagecoach area, and this restaurant was built in the 1800s, and it's the only location that has ever done it to me, and it was out in the back, and I don't know what was that back area was used for, but when I would go back there, I couldn't go back there. Every time I would go back there, I would stand, and then my body would start to vibrate, but it started from my feet and it worked up, and it was like I don't know if it was trying to enter my body or what it was trying to do, but every time we went out there, the same thing happened to me every time. But I haven't been out there in years, so and that restaurant still is standing as well. So I don't know what that was all about, but I did experience that vibration.
I knew this guy too. This is not about vibration, but this is another guy that he's very credible, and I believe him wholeheartedly. He was in an area that we deem as a flap area, and he was just fishing, just doing his thing, and doesn't do the paranormal thing. But he's a very trustworthy guy that I've known for a long time. And he was fishing, and he thought he felt like he was being watched, so he turned around and nobody there. So then he turns back around, makes a cast, and within seconds of just turning around, he hears, "You shouldn't be here." And he turned around, and there was a guy nose to nose with him, and that wasn't there. He said the furthest tree line was like 30, 40 yards. It was like quite a ways from what I remember him explaining. There was nowhere for this guy to have come from that quickly. And he said he looked kind of like a Native American older guy, and just said, "You shouldn't be here." And so it scared him so much he didn't know what to do, and he just turned around and he started grabbing like his stuff and stood back up and said, "Wait a minute," and why? And he went to ask the guy why, and the guy's gone. Next thing you know, he says, I look across the river, and the trees were parting. He goes, from way, way back, he could see them parting, coming closer and closer and closer. And he says, he goes, "I will not fish anywhere near that area anymore." He only goes to like wide open areas his like lakes and stuff. He won't go into woods anymore and fish after that.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff out there, and you know, and where do these things go? They're not always there. I don't think they're coming from somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean,
where did they go? Why did they come and go? You know, they don't.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Same thing with, you know, so with the cryptids, the same thing with these parasitic entities. They're not there at one moment, and then the next moment they're there, and they're being drawn in by, usually when the parasites being drawn in by emotional frequencies, but I think they're utilizing the same mechanics that these cryptids are coming through on, and also for some reason the UFOs are attracted to these areas as well, and you know, and I've just seen it. I mean, maybe the next show we'll do, I got multiple UFO photos in, yeah, we'll just leave it at that. But,
oh, yeah. No, yeah, because, yes, you are coming back. I know you're coming back. But it might not be until next year because, you know, I book months and months in advance. And it might not be until next year, but there's not a problem. I know you'll come back, right?
I know. We've had this show booked for like 8 months, I think, or something. You booked way out. And, hey,
Yeah.
you know why? Because you do a good job, and you bring in a lot of good people. So
I like the best, and you're one of them.
Oh, thank you.
There was one more, Shelty Shangula wanted to know, do you believe that all demons are actually extraterrestrials?
Extraterrestrial, no. I know a lot of people call them demons. You know, but not the classical sense of words. When you say demons and you think of like theology, you think of biblical stuff, and you know, they come from the devil and things like that. So I don't believe that. But yeah, I know what you're saying. The negative entities, the parasitic entities I'm talking about. Do I believe that extraterrestrial? I say we don't know, but they may be terrestrial, which means that they may be life forms that were here on Earth always, because there's evidence of that. When you look at the oldest scriptures that we have available to us on this planet, and they talk about these parasitic entities, they call them archons or they call them jinn. You know, in the Quran, they're named way back, and they're said to influence governments and societies and individuals, and just it seems like they're, like I said, they feed off of fear, but it seems like they must have some kind of ultimate agenda, and I really believe the only thing you can deduce from it is they're trying to keep us from spiritual growth, or they're trying to keep us from reaching some kind of plateau, you know, some level, because I mean, right now, face it, we're dangerous, and you know, we kill each other like crazy, and that could be a product of them too. You know, some of these religions, think about there's been more murders and deaths and stuff from religion going after another religion. You know, religion has, and I'm not saying religion's bad, don't get me wrong, so you know, nobody get upset with that. I'm just saying it's been religions fighting with each other has been responsible for more deaths than probably anything on this planet, and so these religions some of them could have been put in place just to keep conflict, just keep things in disruption, because that's what these little things like. They love disruption, whether it be in your family home or you know, in the world. That's what their goal is. I mean, and I've been doing this long enough to know that there's no other reason why they would be doing this. So, but they've been here for a long time. That I'm sure of. So did they come here from somewhere else? I don't know. We can't be sure. They could be, you know, terrestrial. They could be extraterrestrial. But they're definitely a life form that we know. So they're, you know.
I have one more question. When people contact you and they need help, and they, like I said, most people believe that it's a demonic entity that's causing the issues with them and their household. When you go in there to help them, your belief is that they're probably not demonic, but this negative parasitic entity. So now a lot of these demonologists will go in like Bill Bean or the Johnsons, Carl and oh God, what's the other name? Royce, what's
Keith.
Keith, yeah, I just had Keith on the show. They go about it more in a religious form of trying to get rid of these entities. How do you deal with them?
A lot different than they do, and actually, I've been in after two of those people you just mentioned, and so I won't say who. And I think my personal thought on them as individuals, I think they're very good people, very good people, and very nice, and are in it for all the right reasons. I think they do care about people. Some of them, they like attention from the media a little, more than I do. I only do the media thing because I want to be able to reach out to the people that need me the most. But anyways, so for instance, there was one case where one of them demonologists, there was a family that reached out to them, and they had all kinds of stuff happening in the house. Things were turning on. Their ceiling fan was going berserk. Doors were flying open. Their son was being pulled out of bed at night. He had bruises on his ankles. All kinds of stuff. And the guy of the house was experiencing all kinds of things inside and outside the house. He was seeing apparitions, things climbing in and out of trees and bushes and everything. And so they didn't know where else to go. So they brought in two people from TV, both well known, and then one being the demonologist, one being another guy, I won't say, and then one female that's well known was kind of involved over the phone call or whatever, and that's well known, I won't say. But anyways, so they both went in there with the religious tactics and stuff like that. I had a black light because I just from my own self, the house was empty. They fled the home. They finally said, screw it, we're out of here. They bought a home up close to where I live. This case took place in Massachusetts. They moved to southern New Hampshire where I live. That's how they heard of me. And so I just wanted to see, based on the people that I knew that they brought in, I wanted to see what kind of stuff that they did, and I wasn't surprised. I actually expected to see what I saw, so I took a black light and I shined it on every door and every window. They had put crosses on with like the oils and stuff, and so they did their whole blessing and stuff. But when the thing came back, one group had more of an effect than the others, and so they told me, they said it actually worked for a little while. I said, but it came back worse than ever, and they said yes, it did, and that's why we left. And so now they have 2 mortgages, and these poor people, we're struggling with 2 mortgages, and they're like, we want to sell it or sell it or rent it out, but every time we do, we try to, it seems like it's going to happen, something falls through to ruin it. They even had a blind lady she wanted to go in and walk around the house. She's legally blind, and she said she didn't want to live there because it was too dark, she said. Mm-hmm. So basically, now they have things happening in their new home too. So there's this home that just can't seem to sell or rent, and then their new house, which is a fairly new house, they got things happening in that house. A box fell on the guy, all kinds of different stuff. So I had asked him, turns out basically what started it all off was this guy he was interested in it. He became obsessed with the subject of the paranormal. He told me that he wasn't. He told me he didn't watch movies about it, nothing like that. I went to his bedroom and he had a book about every demon, supposedly. The book was like this thick. It was all about demons and stuff. And so, but he started doing his own investigation at the old house. Something said, okay, he's going to pay attention to me. They jumped in. There was marital issues already to begin with. It fed off of that. And then it instilled the fear and started messing with the kid. They moved out. And that's another thing. They have to control your life. They need disruption. They need to control your life. And they play right into the hand of this entity. Did everything right to make this thing more powerful. And the people that went in there missed every single thing that was actually going on in this house. And there was multiple things I had to address, and I did all that with nothing but verbal communication, and everything went away. It just gone. I was doing 5 days later, they had a bunch of people wanting to buy the house. They had a bunch of people wanting to rent it. They ended up renting it to a guy who's lived there problem-free, hasn't had anything happen. Unfortunately, the marriage failed with the couple, and they went their own ways, but the entity was gone. And, you know, in the other people, they just went in there trying to just, you know, fight this thing in an aggressive manner, and they just failed to understand that. For instance, there's cases where people have been extremely religious their whole life, and all of a sudden now they have a haunt. Well, if the religion was going to work to get rid of this negative entity, why did it not work to circumvent it? So there's a reason for that, and those are the things I looked at years ago, and so I started realizing there's trends within the people themselves, and so I started manipulating those mechanics. I have to manipulate that so we can break the mechanics, break the connection between the entity and us, and it works every single time. And you know, and I'm glad, because I love doing this. I'd quit by now if I didn't. If I wasn't successful, you know.
Oh, you're so interesting. I always love having you on the show. And everyone, don't forget. Let me show. This is Shane's website, trueghost.com. So go check it out. If you need to contact him and you want help, there's a contact tab. Contact him. He's also on Facebook. Do you have a paranormal one on Facebook at all?
I did. I took it down recently. There was some issues with it, and I took it down. There was some issues, but possibly we'll have one back up. There's a link for one on my regular website, but it's not active, so I'll need to address that too. But I'm going to get better with my website. It's starting to post, you know, my upcoming shows. You know, I'm a regular guest co-host on BehindTheParanormal.com.
Oh God,
also,
yeah. Let me show that.
I have a lot of you know, lectures, you know, coming up too. I'll be speaking. Actually, I think I got more UFO conferences coming up than I do, you know, about the parasitic entities. But I'll be speaking at the Exeter UFO Festival here in Exeter, New Hampshire, which is one of the biggest ones on the East Coast. The Greater New England UFO Conference in Leominster, Massachusetts, coming up, and a bunch of other things too that I have scheduled. But I'm going to try to get better about putting that stuff up on my website so people can stay tuned, you know, and come check it out.
Okay. I want to thank you again so much for being on the show. I always love having you, and I will get in touch with you, and you will come back with some more. Oh my God, the next one, I'm not saying, but the next one's going to be another awesome show. Well, my best wishes to you, Shane. Have you written any books?
I've started a book many times, and it's hard for me because I'm so busy anyways, you know, but my focus is so much on just getting out into the field, doing the work, and helping the people, and you know, just doing the investigation stuff that I start. But then, you know, my attention always goes right back to the field work. But I'll tell you what, I mean, I have to make a point of it because it's been, gosh, I mean, since the 90s, I've been getting emails from all around the world from people that want a book, and it doesn't stop. I mean, I just keep getting that steady those steady emails. Just, where's your book? Where's your book? Where can I buy your book? And you know, I have to do it.
Oh yeah. Well, you know what? Having you on all these shows is also fabulous. I think a lot of viewers would just love to listen to you talk. They loved the show. They loved you tonight. Anyway, I want to thank you again, and I'll be in touch with you. Say hi to Paul for me.
Will do. And I want to thank all your listeners. You got a great bunch of listeners, and I appreciate every one of them. Thanks for tuning in, and I appreciate you as well.
Oh, thank you, Shane. Thank you so much. Oh, and happy Father's Day coming up. Have a great weekend, honey. Thank you.
Hey, you too.
Thanks. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Okay, everybody. Well, thank you, Shane. You were an awesome guest as usual. You know, like I said, I'm going to replay the show that I did aired with him, and I'll have to play it as a new show, but I'll be in the chat with you, and it's a fabulous show. It's on parasitic entities, and it was very, very informative. And that's the show he's talking about, where people are contacting him for help. So anyway, everybody, I want to thank you so much, everybody, for being here. So awesome. I hope you enjoyed it. We had a huge crowd tonight. So also, everybody, thank Royce Hinman, our mod, who's always here no matter what. He's not feeling well. So please send your love and positive vibes to Royce. We got to get Royce healed. We got to get him healed. And I know Unique Annie was in earlier. I don't know if she's still around, but she was in earlier, so I want to thank Annie for being here as well. So also super chat. Oh my gosh, what's this? What's this? Hold on for a minute. Oh wow. So thank you, Paul Fam, G Team, thank you so much. Oh, from Australia, thank you so much. And the others that for Super Chat as well, Yvonne Bissett, Kathy Gill, and Chat Anthony, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. Oh, and Jordan Perkins, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you guys, thank you. I want to do some shout outs, so let's do some shout outs. Let's see. Let me see. Royce sent me a list, and I know. Let me go back to the list. I know not everybody is on here. So there's Graham Crosby, Carl White, Aaron Brody, Andrew Cox, Anita Ackerman, B3 Airspace, Kathy Salento, Club 1920s Roleplay, Karen Piotti, Lisa Marie, Maria, Sandra Amador, Misty Dawn, Nancy Santa Maria Latica, Nancy, Nicole Voorhees, Quiet Storm, Royce Hinman, Starry Night. Hey Starry, nice to see you. Zoe Small, and let me, Per Bergalo, Misty Dawn, Yvette Sanchez, Princess Patricia. How you doing, honey? How you doing? I know you had surgery. I just want to know how you're doing. Tammy Morrison. Anybody else want to shout out? Jordan, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Is this the first time, Jordan, you've been on the show? Is this the first time? Yvette Sanchez. Andrew Cox, I don't think we saw you last week. Maybe we did, but you skip out. You leave before the show is over so I can do a shout out to you. Anybody else want to shout out? Anybody else? Misty Dawn. Bethany Warner. Did you guys like the show tonight? I'm going to have him back. I can't wait. Gonna have him back. You know, oh my gosh. I'm almost full through December. I'm not going to do, let's see, I'm not going to do 4 shows because I've got, oh my God, I got family barbecues and the Hornet barbecue, and then another big, huge barbecue with all the Baloviches, like 50 people, and I need some time off. Let's see, July we have 3 shows. Let's see, August we have 3 shows. I don't know how I'm going to do all this. I've got 3 shows in September. And right now I have 2 shows in October. I'll probably have a 3rd. But I need some time off to take care of all these parties. And November I already have 2 shows. In December, I'm only going to do 2 shows, I think, in November. And December, I need time. I'm probably only going to do 2 shows in December. And then go back at it full force in January of 2019. It'll be here before you know it. So, everybody, I want to thank you all. To those who are fathers, happy Father's Day. Have a wonderful weekend. We're leaving for Vegas Tuesday. I'm gonna go see. We're gonna go. We planned this last year. We were able to get tickets to Rod Stewart, and so this trip has been planned. We're going with another couple, and we leave on Tuesday. And I'm so excited. It's in 107 the other day, so it's gonna be really hot. And it's been hot here too in the Bay Area. So everybody, if you have, yeah, boy, time goes by fast. How are my kitties? Oh God, oh my God, another one showed up at my house. I can't take any more in. We already have 16, but this little kitty, the cutest thing you've ever seen. It looks like a doll face. It's got a pink face like a doll face. Oh God, Persian. I knew right away it was a female. The cutest thing you've ever seen. And I had heard that she's been around for the last 2.5 years because I talked to my neighbor down the street, and she said, and I was telling her about this kitty. She said, oh yeah, she said that kitty showed up her doorstep too about 2 years ago, and there was a rescue that she had on her porch, and the kitty didn't like this one, so that little kitty wandered somewhere. I don't know where she went for 2 years, and the lady always wondered what happened to her. I said, well, guess what? She's at my house because I leave cat food on the front porch and cat food in the back with water every day, fresh water and food. And she found it, bless her little heart, and guess what? The other night, Jim and I were sitting in the back of the house because that's where our most of our area space is in the back part of the house. A baby kitten was with her. She had babies, but there's only one, so I don't know. I felt so bad. I don't know what happened to the rest of her little kitties. She only has one, but the kitty is with her, and the baby kitty comes out at night. When the sun starts going down, the little kitty comes out, and then I see her nursing the baby. So I have to get her fixed. I'm going to get an organization to come out and help me trap her, and I want to wait though till the little baby is 6 months because I think I can get the little baby fixed as well and get them both fixed at the same time, and then put them back on my property. And they're welcome to stay here. I've got houses hidden all over my property for these kitties, and I will take care of them. So anyway, so yeah, another little kitty. They you know, these cats, they scout around until they find food. That's their MO. That's what they do, and I'm fine with that. So everybody have a wonderful weekend. Like I said, happy Father's Day to those of you who are fathers, and thank you again so much for being here. The next show will be June 28th. Michael Fleeman, he's been on the show before, who writes true crime books. And he's getting very well known. He spends a lot of time in LA. There's a lot of conferences and stuff that he's been asked to join up on, and he's getting very well known. But anyway, he has to come on the show to do some more true crime, and he has 2 new books out. He doesn't do unsolved crime. There are crimes that have been solved, but he has 2 new books out, but I'm also going to ask him. He's also written about Lacey Peterson, and and he's got a twist on that. So I've asked him if he would come on the show and talk about that as well. Okay, so everybody, you're still a lot of people here. Thank you so much. Chippa Terry, did I say hi to you? I'm dying. No, Jim's on the Hornet. They had a big thing on the Hornet tonight, so he's on the Hornet till 12 a.m. So that's why I was able to have a long show. Otherwise, I'd be in there with my honey. All right, everybody, I love you guys. Thank you so much, and don't forget to send your prayers and positive energy to Royce. We need to get him taken care of. He needs to get well, okay? Love you, Royce. Okay, everybody, I love you guys. Thank you so much. I'm going to say goodnight now. It's like I got 5,000 watts of light on me, and I'm sweating to death. So I'll see you in 2 weeks, okay? Love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Have a great weekend as well, okay? Good night, everybody. Thank you. Love you.